Changing direct speech to indirect speech. At the end of this lesson, you will be able to define direct speech and indirect speech, identify the difference between direct speech and indirect speech,
change the mode of narration of the following sentences. Mode of narration?
What's wrong, Fleck? Have you finished your homework?
No, Zizi, I don't understand the meaning of the phrase mode of narration.
Mode of narration tells us whether a sentence is reported in direct speech or indirect speech.
Huh? What do you mean?
Alright, let's read through the basics of direct and indirect speech before we get into the details.
We may report what somebody has said in two ways: direct speech or indirect speech. We use direct speech to report what somebody has said or what we have heard somebody say by using the same or actual words used by the speaker. We use indirect speech to report what somebody has said without using exactly the same words used by the speaker. Let's look at some examples to understand this better. The sentence, Rahul said, "Roy is a good friend of mine," is in direct speech, since it uses the exact words used by Rahul. On the other hand, the second sentence, Rahul said that Roy was a good friend of his, does not use the exact words used by Rahul, hence it is said to be in indirect speech. Let us first study the elements of a report in direct speech. From the example, we can see that a sentence in direct speech uses double inverted commas or quotation marks to place the exact words used by the speaker. In direct speech, the group of words within the quotation marks is called the quote. The verb used outside the quotation marks is called the verb of speaking or reporting verb. In the example here, Roy is a good friend of mine is the quote. It is placed within the quotation marks since this group refers to the exact words used by Rahul. The word said is the reporting verb placed outside the quotation marks. A sentence in direct speech contains two parts, the reporting clause and the quote. We know that a clause is a group of words that contains a subject and a predicate and forms part of a sentence. So, for a sentence in direct speech, the group of words that contains the reporting verb or the main verb is called the reporting clause. Let's look at some examples to understand this better. Zizi said, "I will help you, Fleck." Fleck asked Zizi, "Can you help me?" both these sentences are made up of two parts. In the first sentence, since the first part, Zizi said, contains a subject, Zizi, and predicate, said, which is also the reporting verb, this part is called the reporting clause. The second part, I will help you, Fleck, is the quote. Similarly, in the second sentence, the first part, Fleck asked Zizi, contains a subject, Fleck, and predicate, asked Zizi, which also contains the reporting verb, asked. This part is called the reporting clause. Can you help me? Is the quote. In direct speech, the reporting verb may have a direct object and or an indirect object. We refer to the reporting verb as the main verb, and the quote is the direct object of the main verb. Let's look at a previous example. Zizi said, I will help you, Fleck. In this example, the reporting verb said only has a direct object. We can identify the direct object by asking the question, Zizi said what? The answer will be the quote, which thus becomes the direct object of the verb. The reporting verb may also have an indirect object. Let's take a previous example again. Fleck asked Zizi, can you help me? Here, the reporting verb is asked. It has both a direct and an indirect object. We can identify both the objects by asking questions. Fleck asked what and Fleck asked whom. The answer to the first question is the quote. Can you help me? Hence, this is the direct object of the verb. The answer to the second question is Zizi, which becomes the indirect object of the verb. We know that a sentence in direct speech may begin or end with a quote. The position of the quote will determine the position of the reporting verb. When a sentence begins with a quote, the reporting verb usually comes before the subject. If the subject is a pronoun, then the reporting verb is usually placed after its subject. Look at the following sentence. Have you finished your homework? Asked Zizi. This sentence starts with a quote. The reporting verb asked comes before the speaker, Zizi. We can use a pronoun instead of the name of the speaker and say, have you finished your homework? She asked. In this case, the pronoun comes before the reporting verb. Sentences can end with a quote too. In case of a sentence ending with a quote, the reporting verb always comes after the speaker or the pronoun. Let's take an example here. Fleck said, I don't understand this. Here, the quote is placed at the end of the sentence. In this second example, the reporting verb said comes after the speaker fled. If we use a pronoun in place of fled and say, "He said, I don't understand this," the position of the reporting verb still remains the same. As we have seen, reporting verbs play a very important role in reported speech. Two of the most commonly used reporting verbs are said and told. Told is used to report something as well as tell us to whom the speaker is speaking. It takes both a direct object and an indirect object. Look at the following example. Zizi told Fleck, "I will help you." The reporting verb told takes a direct object, the quote. It also takes an indirect object, Fleck. On the other hand, said is used to only report what somebody said. It takes only a direct object. Look at this example. Zizi said, "I will help you." Here, the verb said only has a direct object, the quote. However, we can also use the verb said and show who the speaker is speaking to by using the preposition to after it. So, we can say, Zizi said to Fleck, "I will help you." We cannot say Zizi said Fleck, "I will help you," since we need to use the preposition to after the verb said. We can also say, Zizi told Fleck, "I will help you." We cannot say, Zizi told to Fleck, "I will help you," since we cannot use the preposition to along with told in this way. Now that we have understood the main elements of direct speech, let's move on to indirect speech. As in direct speech, a sentence in indirect speech also contains two parts: the reporting clause containing the reporting verb and the report. Let's look at an example of such a sentence. Zizi told Fleck that she would help him. Here, Zizi told Fleck is the reporting clause that contains the reporting verb told. That she would help him is the report which tells us what Zizi said to Fleck. A report in indirect speech refers to an account of what has been said by the speaker. Even in indirect speech, the reporting verb can have a direct and or indirect object. In the indirect speech, the report is the object of the reporting verb. If the reporting verb has two objects, then the report is the direct object of the reporting verb. Let's look at the previous example. Zizi told Fleck that she would help him. Here, the reporting verb told has two objects. we can identify both the direct and the indirect object by asking questions Zizi told what and Zizi told whom. The answer to the first question is the report that she would help him. Hence, this is the direct object of the verb. The answer to the second question is fleck, which becomes the indirect object of the verb.
So now we know that we can report something in both direct speech and indirect speech.
So that means that the mode of narration could be either in direct speech or indirect speech.
That's right, Fleck.
Zizi's book was really helpful, wasn't it? Before we go out and play, let's run through all the points we have learned in the lesson on direct and indirect speech. We use direct speech when we report what somebody has said or what we have heard somebody say by using the same or actual words used by the speaker. We use indirect speech when we report what somebody has said without using exactly the same words used by the speaker. A sentence in direct speech uses double inverted commas or quotation marks to place the exact words used by the speaker. They are not used in indirect speech since the words used are not exactly the same as used by the speaker. The group of words within the quotation marks is called a quote. The verb used outside the quotation marks is called the verb of speaking or reporting verb or main verb. A report in indirect speech refers to an account of what has been said by the speaker. A sentence in direct speech has two parts, the reporting clause and the quote. The part that contains the reporting verb or the main verb is called the reporting clause. In direct speech, the reporting verb may have a direct object and or an indirect object. The quote is the direct object of the reporting verb. A sentence in direct speech may begin or end with a quote. When a sentence begins with a quote, the reporting verb usually comes before the subject. If the subject is a pronoun, the reporting verb is usually placed after its subject. In case of a sentence ending with a quote, the reporting verb always comes after the speaker or the pronoun. Told reports something as well as tells us who the speaker is speaking to. It has both a direct object and an indirect object. Said is only used to report something. It has only a direct object.